So this is it, the final round of the GB3 Championship. We're here at Donington Park. It's Yoel Groundforce chasing Luke Browning, a 16.5-point gap between the two title contenders. Neither of those guys have qualified on pole. Neither of those guys have qualified in the top three. Luke Browning will start 5th in this first race. Yoel will start 8th. But it's Callum Voisin who, for Carlin, has done a storming lap there, and in fact 2 storming laps because he's got a double pole position. He'll be on pole for this race and the first race tomorrow. Tom Leben coming out of nowhere to start on 2nd, and Bryce Aaron, who is Luke Browning's teammate, out-qualifying him for the first time. Piers Pryor, let's just leave those guys aside in the top 3 for now. We'll talk about them a bit later, but in terms of the title contenders, you know, it's already advantage Luke this weekend.
Advantage Luke as it stands, with a few drivers in between, a couple. So Luke qualifying 5th, Yoel Groundforce 8th, both slightly lower than we have seen previously at other rounds. Groundforce will be trying to close that gap to Luke and overtake him in the race. We've seen they can both move through the field. Luke will be trying to extend that gap, of course, and hopefully get the championship seal before we head into the final race and reverse grid on Sunday afternoon. Well,
a little bit later, we're going to see a little sit down I had with Luke and with Yoel, and Luke was saying he wanted to have it tied up by the second race of the weekend. You know, if he gets a race win here or finishes significantly ahead of Yoel, he could have it tied up by lunchtime tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see for now. We'll catch up with him a little bit later on, but for now, let's take a look at where we're racing for the second time this season here at Donington Park.
Well, where are we headed then this weekend? But of course, Donington Park, set in the Derbyshire-Leicestershire border up in the Midlands of England. A fantastic racetrack that the drivers do definitely love because of its high-speed commitment. The circuit, roughly 4 kilometres in length, requires bravery all the way around. Built back in 1931, it closed briefly before it reopened in 1977. And then in the early 80s, they added in the Grand Prix Loop, a fantastic track full of high-speed commitment and plenty of overtaking opportunities as well across the 2.5-mile circuit. When you account for corners like Redgate, of course the old hairpin up towards McLean's and Coppice, down towards the Melbourne hairpin, there are so many overtaking opportunities around here and so much bravery required around a lot of the blind entry corners. It really is a great track.
So that's where we're racing this weekend. We've been here once already this season, but this is the finale as we crown a new GB3 champion at the end of the weekend. We'll go on to that in just a second. We'll talk about where Luke Browning and Yoel Groundforce qualified. But qualifying has just finished, and Luke's teammate Bryce Aaron, where did that come from? P3, that was a great lap.
Yeah, it was a really good session. The car felt amazing. You know, I spent 2 days really dialing it in, and this morning was a bit tricky because, you know, it rained really heavily first thing, and then the GT started drying it off right before us, and we had a little bit of a damp patches on the track. But as the session progressed, it dried out, and then it got really good, and kind of the tires came to life. And yeah, put together a little lap in some clean air, and yeah, good result. Really happy about it.
Now, obviously, you are driving for yourself, but you're also driving for High Tech. How does it affect you when, you know, your teammate is one of the 2 drivers who can win the championship this year? Is that in the back of your mind at all, or are you just focused on yourself?
I think, you know, it just goes for any 2 teammates. You know, you obviously want to race hard but fair, and you know, that's going to be the same as it is going to be today. Obviously, you know, you have to, you know, race for yourself, race for your own results. That's why we're all here. But at the same time, you know, I help out where I can. But you know, the end of the goal is for me to be on the podium for a win.
Okay.
And Bryce, great qualifying. You've come a long way this season, of course, from the start of the year to now. This being your strongest qualifying, what do you think the difference has been?
I'd say, you know, it's definitely over time, just learning the car more. It's definitely a very unique car in the way it drives, especially under braking. But yeah, definitely just adapting to it over time felt good. Dialing in the setup, figuring out as well what works for me. You know, talking about, you know, setups, it's a bit different for driver to driver. And I think in the beginning of the season, I still wasn't sure, even though it was my second season. But luckily, we were able to dial it in a bit more and really confident with it now.
Well, sounds great. Good luck in the races to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So P3 for Bryce and Callum Voisin getting the double pole position. That means he'll be pole position for this upcoming race and also the first race tomorrow. So it's going to be quite good for him because he'll win the John Cavell Award for the Pole Position Cup, which is a nice prize, which me and Piers will discuss with him hopefully later on. But let's just recap on the last round of the championship. We were down in Kent at Brands Hatch for another exciting weekend of racing in the GB3 Championship.
Highlights from round 19 of the GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC, would see Matthew Rees starting from pole position. A great start from Luke Browning, who'd take over second position on the race down towards the first corner, getting ahead of his championship rival in Yoel Groundforce. Callum Voisin was marching his way back up the order after having to start from the back of the grid after issues in qualifying. He'd be picking up 1, 2, 3, 4 places, marching his way towards the top 10 around the outside, one of the corners where he made an incident earlier. Next up was Max Esterson. This was a position to get himself inside the top 10 and his rival for the top 3 in the championship, straight around around the outside once again after the Hawthorns. Before they got to Westfield Bend, Callum Voisin was back inside the top 10. He'll have to do that quite a few times. Javier Segura with a big moment though, coming through Sheen Curve after Dingle Dow. He'd managed to rejoin the circuit, but he'd come back into the pit lane to retire from the race. Matthew Rees, only one podium before this season. He comes out of the final corner to take victory at Brands Hatch in the opening race of the weekend. A super performance from Matthew Rees ahead of Luke Browning and Joel Gramfors. Race 2 of the weekend got underway with a great start from Tom Leben. Another good one from Luke Browning as well, from 4th position on the grid. He'd race his way around the outside of his championship rival in Joel Gramfors, and the race up the hill towards the second corner. Matthew Rees also attacking for the race lead. Tom Leben would hang on to that, but the championship rivals were getting into feisty fisticuffs behind as they'd be side by side down towards Graham Hill Bend. Tom Leben with the inside line would hang on to the race lead. Luke Browning with the inside line would hang on to 3rd position, whilst it all got a little bit choked up going through Graham Hill. Side by side, a plenty coming through the Druids corner with James Headley and Tommy Smith going side by side. Tommy Smith holding the advantage on that, moving his way just outside of the top 10 with the 12th place running at that point in the race. And then Javier Segura, another big moment for him, retirement in the previous race. Got close to it that time. David Morales with a bit of a moment coming up through the penultimate corner, sorry, 3rd corner at Graham Hill Bend, and managed to get himself back onto the road whilst losing about 6 or 7 positions inside the top 10, dropped down to 14th. And Tom Leben would come through the final corner to cross the line as a victor once again for the 3rd time in his GB3 career, closely followed by the championship rival of Luke Browning and then Matthew Rees as well. Highlights then from the all-important 3rd race of the weekend. The reverse grid race would have Marcus Flack starting from pole position. Zach Taylor was going on the attack into the 1st corner. Brandon Oxley would hang on to 2nd position. And then there was this crash. Callum Voisin and Max Etterson out into the barrier. A lot of repairs. Thankfully, both of them were okay, but the red flag had to come out. It would give Marcus Flack, after an issue on the initial start, a jump start even, he would actually drop to the back of the pack on the restart of the race. Meanwhile, Fortec, of course, it was the man himself, Joel Gramfors, instantly going on the attack. He had a great start to the race, but unfortunately some front wing damage for him over the restarted first lap would drop him back into the pack, of course, into the clutches of his main championship rival in the form of Luke Browning, and everyone behind would have to come into the pit lane and would lose an awful lot of ground. Roberto Faria, one of the highest climbers in the race, was charging up to the battle for the race lead. However, he couldn't really catch Cian Shields and he couldn't catch Brandon Oxley. Brandon Oxley would take victory in round 21 of the season. And the championship standings then, Luke Browning at the top heading into the final 3 races of the season, 431 points to his name, plenty clear of Joel Gramfors. It is just the top 2 in the championship fight, but everyone fighting over the lower positions behind. Callum Voisin starting from 3rd position with Roberto Faria and Tom Leben 4th and 5th. Matthew Rees, of course, one driver that's been very impressive throughout the season. A couple of drivers coming on to form a bit later on. Bryce, Aaron, Mackenzie Cresswell, what can they grab over the final round at Donington Park, along with likes of Cian Shields also looking very, very strong. Marcus Black not here, so might drop back a couple of positions as well, as we see Mikael Grundtvig, the reverse grid master, 20th position in the championship. Maybe he's got something planned for the final round of the season.
Well, we can see Ayato Iwasaki's car there, the Elite Motorsports car, the new driver on the GB3 grid for this weekend. But there are 3 drivers that we're missing, and well, let's go through them. Marcus Flack is one for Douglas Motorsports, so we've seen Marcus probably have quite a mixed season, haven't we? And he's not here because he's up to other things. I mean, how would you rate his year so far? It's been, I mean, we know he's done other championships, so he's, I guess, you know, he's sort of dipping his toe in many different things. I mean, maybe that's what he wants to do.
Getting experience elsewhere, but he's had an up and down season. We know he got that race win, of course, so he'll be very happy with that, but disappointing not to see the 3rd Douglas car here this weekend.
We've just seen the highlights from Brands Hatch, and actually Brandon Oxley that won that final race. He's not here as well. We've seen on his Instagram page he's been driving Lamborghinis and things like that. So he's got some other commitments that means that he's not here at Donington. And also very unlucky, James Headley. We've seen him here for the first 2 days of testing, but after a bit of an incident going off, he actually sort of had a heavy off onto the grass. And if you've seen his Instagram page, which I'm sure might be just overlaid by the magic of technology somewhere in this shot, you can see there that, you know, he's been to hospital and it looks like he's broken a bone just below his thumb, and he's going to have surgery on that. So that's his season over, which is disappointing for James after obviously, you know, starting out with Elite and then moving to JHR and seeing some good pace.
Yeah, James has shown some pace with JHR the second half of the season. He was disappointed how he got going, and he said he's had an up and down year by his own standards. But he was showing some really good pace in testing on Thursday and Friday. He headed the first session on Thursday morning, so hit the ground running, was right up there with Reese, who we know has been very fast, his teammate. And unfortunately, very similar to what happened to Alex Connor at the previous round in testing, where Alex Connor had a moment, a slide, and then as the wheel snapped back, it jammed his thumb. Very similar to what happened to James, I believe, at the Old Hairpin, from speaking to a few people in the paddock, where he went off, and as he was trying to catch the car went through a bump, and it just jolted the steering wheel against his hand, which then jolted his arm against the cockpit, which is it shows how much force is going through these steering wheels and why the drivers have to be so fit. But that unfortunately broke a couple of bones in his hand, so really disappointing not to see him on the grid this weekend.
Well, you can see from that photo that we just saw on the screen, it's a serious bit of bandaging there, so it's quite a serious injury for him. But obviously we send him our best wishes, and we hope to see him maybe on the grid next year in GB3. But we've talked about it a lot, and it's getting ever closer. The battle between the two championship contenders. Luke Browning starts 5th in this race against Joao Granfors. He's starting 8th. Ahead of all of this, yesterday, I sat down with the drivers in the canteen, Garage 39 here at Donington Park, and we're going to show you a full video tomorrow, but I just want to show you a little preview of what the drivers had to say about each other.
I think just his speed in general, both in race pace and qualifying, has been really strong. Every time you go out in both qualifying and all the races, you really have to push to 100%, especially like if you have him behind you in the races. So I think just his speed in general is very quick. He has a lot of experience in racing, especially on these tracks in the UK. He's driven them a lot, so I think it was a good challenge for me this year.
Very good driver, and it has to be said from, I'm sure he'll acknowledge on the even part, and it's been great to race against him this year. Very clean driver, and his pace has been very outstanding. So to win against an opponent like that it's for sure an achievement, and I'm sure either way it goes, we'll both give each other a handshake at the end of it.
And I think you've both got very bright futures, and I imagine you'll be racing against each other at some stage, at some level again in the future, so it's good to know that you have that mutual respect. So some very nice words they've got to say about each other, Joao Granfors and Luke Browning. We'll see more from that sit-down interview ahead of tomorrow's 2 races here in the GB3 Championship. But it's not just the drivers who are going for the title, there's also a team competition. It's pretty much between High Tech and the team behind me, Carlin. And I actually chatted to one of their drivers earlier on today. It was before qualifying. It's actually the double pole sitter, Callum Voisin. Ahead of him doing the amazing lap there right at the end of qualifying to get the double pole. I had a chat with him to see how he's feeling ahead of this weekend and ahead of the team championship being decided. So Callum, you've got a kind of weird weekend because you're 3rd in the championship now, not in the title contention, but still, I mean, 3rd's pretty impressive in the GB3 Championship. How are you approaching this weekend?
I mean, to be honest, I'm just here to have fun, especially kind of after the last round at Brands Hatch. It wasn't the best of weekends, but no, I mean, I'm definitely just here to, get some good results to end the year on a high and go for the team's championship, really.
How do you look back on this year in the GB3 Championship, both from your perspective and perhaps the team as well?
I mean, I think overall it's been pretty good. I mean, I think we probably should be a bit more ahead than we have been, especially just, a few mistakes on my side, or, we've had a few problems, just like Spa quali, for example, or something like that. But no, I mean, overall we've been pretty good, throughout the year, and we're just getting better. So yeah.
Looking ahead, do you know what's next? Is it more GB3 next year, or are there a few options on the table? I know Roberto's been doing some testing we've seen well publicised.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's a couple of options next year, but you might see me on the GB3 grid again next year. If I would be, it'd definitely be with Carlin, but no, I mean, we'll see. Nothing's planned at the moment.
Great to hear from our pole setter Callum Voisin there. Now let's ride on board our championship protagonist, Joao Granfors, around this Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. Red Gate Corner, the main overtaking opportunity on the circuit, braking very late, using all of the road on the left-hand side and running out to the curb on the exit. We now run down the completely flat out Hollywood and Craner curves, all about setting yourself up for the full commitment and high speed Old Hairpin. Just look at the speed through here. On the power before the apex of the Old Hairpin, over 110 miles an hour through that corner, now rising up through Schwantz and into McLean's, keeping well left to open up the entry using all of the curb on the middle of the corner and on the exit. Now completely blind is Coppice. Pick your turning point now, trust it, and then full throttle right to the edge of the circuit to head us out on this long back straight past the exhibition centre. Another overtaking opportunity in the race with the slipstream. This is the Fogarty S is completely committed through here. Watch this. 1 apex, 2 completely flat out, bumps on the second part as well. Very, very easy to make a mistake there. Now, very important, downhill braking into the Melbourne hairpin. Getting in nice and early, stopping the car. Very, very controlled there, which is the key to a good lap time. Now, 1 more corner to go. Goddard's, again, completely blind on braking and turning. Getting in nice and early, hooking the apex, and traction on the exit is vitally important for a good lap around this Donington Park Grand Prix circuit.
Well, we're down here at the assembly area, and I have to say, Piers, it was due to be raining at this point, but it's, I wouldn't say searing sunshine, but it's certainly bright.
It's sunny, if not cold and blowy and freezing, hence the gloves. But looking forward to a good race. Tyre temperature is going to be important in the first couple of laps. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked earlier about Callum Voisin, and we were watching qualifying, and we were watching on the first turn here, watching some of the cars take it a little bit wide there, having laps deleted for the track limits, which I think is probably quite easy to do on that first turn. And the first 2 drivers there, Callum Voisin was kind of up there at the start, but Tom Leben was nowhere to be seen, and Piers actually turned to me and said, "Where's Leben?" Oh, you were disappointed. You were like, yeah. Tom Leben should be up here. He's been here. He's done a lot of testing here. We've been here once already this year. Yeah. And then out of nowhere, the next time you look down at the timings, Tom Leben, pole position, ends up dropping back second. So he's got some real pace here. And we've seen, that if he starts out the front and he can stay there, he's quite hard to get past. And then you've got Bryce Aaron. So, how do you see the start of this race going? We've talked a lot about the championship leaders, but we've got 3, with John Bennett as well, 4 exceptional drivers ahead of even that conversation.
We've, of course, got the championship fight, which we've all been talking about so much, and we're looking forward to seeing how that unfolds. But our championship leaders aren't currently going to be challenging the podium unless something crazy happens. Tom Leben has been excellent pace in testing, and that elite motorsport car has been getting stronger and stronger, the pairing of Leben and Bennett as well. Bennett only in P4, I think, yeah, P4, so they'll be pushing on to try and get a double podium for them. But Voisin, again, great speed, double pole position. He's really found some form second half of this year in terms of speed. Very unfortunate at the last round with his qualifying issue, but he's going to be going for another race win to add to the race win he got here earlier on in the year.
Yeah, and Callum Voisin has taken the Jack Cavell pole position cup. I saw him with John Cavell earlier getting the novelty check. It's not the biggest novelty check, but I think that maybe if you win the whole thing as he has done, then maybe the check will increase in size. I might be completely wrong, but there we go. And I want to talk about Bryce Aaron, and we heard from Bryce Aaron earlier on, the American driver, a lot of the family over from Chicago. He's out-qualified Luke Browning, and why would that be? They're very similar cars, but Luke Browning's been so dominant all year and is obviously the championship leader. How has Bryce Aaron suddenly come and out-qualified him by 2 places? Is it a case of just Luke not being quite on it?
I don't think it's a case of Luke not being on it, because he's still in 5th place.
Well,
it's still very good.
It's a
very competitive field. We've seen every single qualifying session this year. It's been so close. The margins between first and potentially, as far down as we can see, 10th, 11th place, it's just a few tenths. Yeah. Which is nothing really. It could be one mistake, it could be one corner, it could be a bit of wind, it could be how well you get the tyres in. And that, I think that Bryce Aaron dropped in a session, a really quick lap at the end of the session due to just getting the tyres in the right window, with it being so blustery as well. If you get a lap with slightly less wind or the wind's slightly more favourable, that can give you a tenth or so. And there's just so many variables that, and the margins are so fine that it could have just been done a better job in this session. Yeah. But as we've seen from a lot of the drivers, they've improved as the year has gone on. We spoke to Bryce about that earlier as well, and he's been happy with how he's been driving, and using Luke as a benchmark, he's been able to get closer and closer, and this time actually best him.
Yeah, some great data as well, and we've talked earlier about Matthew Rees earlier in the year. Matthew Rees with JHR just had himself no teammate, and then James Headley's come on, and James Headley's not racing, unfortunately. His season's over. He's broken a bone. We just saw him just now, and he's just broken it just above his thumb there. Surgery booked for next week, so it's gutting for him. But Matthew Rees is one of those drivers that's in between Luke Browning on this grid and Yoel Granfors. So Matthew Rees will start 6th with Javier Segura in 7th, and I think that Matthew Rees has shown us what he can do now. Obviously a champion last year, and really is starting to build on that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Matthew Rees will be hoping to make up some places, and right behind Luke Browning. Luke could be in trouble.
We've seen Matthew Rees, of course, having great pace this season, being the winner of race 1 last time out of Brands GP. He's been right there. We've also seen him being very aggressive on the racetrack in terms of making up positions and the reverse grids. He's been very good, and he actually was had the second or third fastest sectors if you put them together. So he had the pace. He just didn't quite put the sectors and laps together. We're not sure whether that was because of traffic, or whether it was just the wind, or whether he just didn't quite put the sectors together. So we know he's got the pace for a top 3 in the car and in himself. Didn't quite put it together in qualifying, but that doesn't mean that he couldn't then use that in the race to make a way forward. And we know, we saw earlier on this year at Donington, we can race here. We've got turn 1 Redgate, very open. We've got the long back straight towards the Fogarty S's, which you can overtake at. And then finally this last sector right behind us now with 2 hairpins, prime overtaking opportunities.
It really is. And I don't think Matthew Rees will mind me saying this, but at the start of the year, compared to now, if you look at him, he's clearly been working in his fitness off the track. And we talked about this, I think maybe earlier in the year. He came 3rd at Alton Park. And I think we talked about that then. You know, the life of a driver isn't just getting in the car and doing the sim and learning your racecraft, but also being in peak physical condition. And obviously when you've got, you know, younger drivers who are coming through, and obviously in the GB4 series, you know, from 15 and up, having that fitness and especially the strength in your neck. I know it's not Formula 1 right now, but it's, you know, you still got to have a good level of fitness. That will surely help Matthew Rees as well.
Of course, he's concentrated a lot on his fitness, as will a lot of the drivers. We spoke to Brandon Oxley earlier on this year, and he was telling us about his fitness and nutrition regime, which is very important to him. Unfortunately, he's not here this round, which is a shame. But these cars, you say they're not Formula 1. However, Formula 1, you have the luxury of brake-by-wire, you have the luxury of power steering. These cars, no power steering. You're pressing the cylinder in the brake pedal, so you really have to press the brake hard. And the higher the downforce, which these cars have, the more heavy the steering gets. And places like here in Silverstone, where you're travelling fast, you've got a lot of aerodynamic grip, it really weights up that steering. And while it is manageable, and most of the drivers without training could probably manage to turn the steering wheel and get round the circuit, making sure that you're fit enough that it's not the limiting factor towards the end of the weekend is the difference between the, you know, potentially having a few places different and therefore a championship or not.
Yeah, okay, I was going to say Piers is going to have to be quite fit, because we're here at the assembly area. If you've ever been to Donington, it's the end of the Melbourne hairpin, and Piers is going to make his way all the way up to the start of the straight there to do commentary with Lewis McGlade. And obviously as soon as the cars go out, we'll be handing over to Lewis McGlade. Just looking behind us now, I mean, the sun's gone behind these big clouds. Tyre temperatures, I mean, in GB3 compared to GB4, Piers, you know, how easy is it to get these tyres up to temperature? Because, you know, we've seen with British GT, they've got machines there heating their tyres. You see in Formula 1, you have the tyre blankets. Here, that's not an option. So how many laps will it take to get the tyres up to peak warmth?
As you mentioned, no tyre blankets in the GB3 or GB4 Championship, so they are the ambient temperature, which is not warm today.
No.
Probably looking at about 10, 11, 12 degrees, something like that. Feels colder in the wind. But you can see in the background that Callum Voisin, going from pole position, has got 2 new tyres on the right-hand side, slightly different to Leben, who's got 2 new tyres on the left-hand side. We also noticed that Leben has scrubbed his in qualifying. Now, you mentioned about the tyres coming up to temperature. That is very important. These tyres have a very, not that narrow, but they have a temperature which they operate best at to get the most from the performance, and you need that for fast lap times and also to make overtakes. So on the out lap, so to the grid now, and then on their lap to the grid before the race start, they'll be able to get most of the tyre temperature they need in GB3. They're quite powerful, 230 horsepower and a bit more, quite a lot of downforce to get forced through the tyres. So we're looking at lap 1 will be pretty good. You know, you might get a bit of sliding on lap 1, but lap 2 and 3 you're off, and then the fastest laps will be somewhere in at the middle of the race. GB4 is more of an issue because there's less power, there's less weight, there's less aerodynamic grip to produce less force and energy into the tyres, because ultimately that energy that you put through the tyre is what creates the heat, which is what creates the grip. So not too much of an issue here. It's something that they need to make sure that their tyre warm procedure is correct, but there should be no issue with cold tyres on that one, hopefully, assuming you do the right job.
Famous last words there from Piers Pryor. Also something I've just noticed while we've been chatting, Callum Voisin's been sat here with the car running on pole position. All of the other cars, until Bryce Allen's just fired up his car, they're not running at all. Is there a reason that you would maybe have your car fired up when, you know, we're not quite ready to go yet?
These are pedigree racing machines. We've mentioned about the tyres being, you know, the window for operating has to be just right. The engines are just the same. Right. They're very powerful engines, 2 litre, 230 horsepower, 4-cylinder, and they operate their best when they're at the perfect temperature. They don't have fans like normal road cars. When we're sitting in traffic in our road car, the fans will start to keep the engine cool. These don't have fans. They rely on that air rushing through the side pods to keep them cool. So if he was running there, the temperature would be rising, but if the temperature was too low, then they also don't have as much power. So there'll be a balancing act the teams will play there.
Yeah. Well, Piers, I'm going to let you go and do commentary now. However, you're going to have to run in front of several cars. Yeah. So we'll just watch the cars go out here for a second. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah. Here we go. Yoel Grandforce here in the Quartet car. He'll be looking to make up some places there. I mean, he's already 3 places behind Luke Browning, so he's already got a bit to do. I mean, I personally think, having seen Javier Segura qualify so strongly, and we know what Matthew Rees can do, I think we're going to see a bit of a trouble for Yoel getting through. But anyway, I'm going to let Piers put his microphone down in this flower bed behind me. He's going to run off to do commentary alongside your lead commentator, Lewis McGlade.
It certainly is time to go racing. The final race weekend of the year. What a year it's been as well. I mean, what a crazy story we've had throughout the 2022 championship here in the GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC. But all good things must come to an end, and good things coming to an end with Callum Voisin on that pole position. What a super effort in that qualifying session to have grabbed the first pole position by just 0.05 of a second over Tom Leben. There is an issue there for Mikael Grundtvig, who I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark to say that he was probably warming his tyres and got that quite wrong indeed. Is there any front wing damage? I don't believe so. So should have gotten away with that. I was certainly not ready for that. It was a bit of a moment there, unfortunately, for the reverse grid master. He will be starting from the 20th position, and I do believe is comfortably within the 103% rule, so that will come into effect tomorrow afternoon. You can see, obviously, sun's it's dipping a little bit. We've still got plenty of sunlight left, don't worry. But of course, you know, for the GB4 race a bit later on, it might cause a couple of problems. We'll take a look as to what actually happened with Grundtvig there. Let's take a look, see how it happened. I think he's going to go for the warm-up and just get it. Yeah, there you go. As soon as he got that burnout, as soon as he went for it, as soon as he got even remotely close to that throttle, it went. Obviously, very, very cold tyres. It is quite a chilly day out there, so, you know, fair enough, and he's plenty experienced. They'll begin the formation lap, and remember the last time we went racing here earlier on in the year, it was Callum Voisin. He didn't take pole position, but he did win the race, courtesy of some contact between Matthew Rees, Yoel Grandforce, and then Luke Browning obviously getting involved in the mix, and Callum Voisin came through to pick up a victory, and, well, starting from pole position this time. He might well do the same thing, might well come over and take victory, but he's got to fight off Tom Leben, who's plenty fast enough. He's had such great form. We'll take a look at the starting grid then, with Voisin and Leben on the front row of the grid. Leben's going to go on the attack straight away. Bryce Aaron, an amazing qualifying for the High-Tech Grand Prix man, alongside John Bennett inside the top 5 once again this season. Luke Browning, championship leader, starts from 5th place, with Matthew Rees, the race winner from Brands Hatch, starting from 6th spot. Javier Segura and Yoel Grandforce. Of course, Grandforce has got a lot of work to do to get after the championship. He'll start from 8th position. Zach Taylor inside the top 10 once again, and Roberto Faria finalising the top 10 finish. Max Esterson, who went so well around here the last time, went only starting in 11th spot, with Mackenzie Cresswell in 12th. Nico Christodoulou made his debut around here, starts alongside his teammate, of course, in Morales. Alex Connor and Tommy Smith start 15th and 16th spot before we get to Kian Shields and our debutant of Ayato Iwasaki, who will start from 18th position. And then we get Nick Gilks and Mikael Grundtvig rolling out the 20-car grid. Struggles in qualifying for the pair of them, but they've got something to do when it comes to that all-important third race later on. What to expect from this one then? Of course, we know that it's going to be roughly 18 minutes long. There'll be plenty of laps of racing to have happen out there. A lot of dive bombs coming down into the first corner at Redgate. A lot going on down towards the old hairpin as well. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for these drivers to make some progress on what is a slightly colder day. Grip's going to be a little bit more questionable, as we've already seen from Mikael Grundtvig. And I kind of wonder if we're going to see some drama already in this race, because if there's one thing that I think a few drivers out there, Luke Browning for the likes, might want to avoid, is any sort of large drama. They're all lining themselves up onto the grid, so we'll see Callum Voisin come into his spot. I don't know. We've got Piers Pryor alongside us in the coach. He's made the run. I don't know if you saw the spin there from Grundtvig. He was lighting up the tyres, just went for it straight away.
I walked in the comms box. You said there's drama before the race has even started. Where was this on the circuit?
Literally coming out of the assembly area. So he's come out onto the loop and has just gone straight away.
Shows how little grip you have on those cold tyres. The Pirelli tyres, you run are very, very grippy once you get them up to temperature, but when they're stone cold, they are pretty treacherous. But most of the drivers will have got some heat in them by now, and it looks like green flag ready to go racing.
Yes, indeed. Just 3 races left to go in 2022. It's Callum Voisin starting from pole position. Tom Levin alongside as we are underway at Donington Park. A bad start from Max Esterson in the background. He's going to squeeze off Nico Christodoulou. A great one, though, from Callum Voisin. Look at John Bennett, though. He's got to the outside in the number 27 Elite Motorsports car. He's going for the race lead, or going for the second place, rather. Luke Browning around the outside of his teammate Bryce Aaron, who's going backwards as they depart Redgate, down Hollywood, and then down the Craner Curves. Great start from Callum Voisin.
Great start from Callum Voisin. Also a great start from Luke Browning. Nearly jumped his teammate a whole row at the start, but had got sandwiched and backed out earlier on, but still managed to get through. That looks like Farrier's got a bit of potentially some damage there. The rear of the car's bouncing a lot.
Yeah, he went a little bit wide coming out of the old hairpin. Of course, almost contact between himself and Matthew Rees. This is where Rees and Granfors came into a bit of woes the first time he came in. Zach Taylor also. There's 3 wide off in the background. Look at this from Nico Christodoulou trying to get down the inside of Mackenzie Cresswell as they head up towards Coppice. Max Esterson coming out on top of all of that, and then Mackenzie Cresswell just coming out ahead of Nico Christodoulou in his Chris Dittman racing car. What a start, though, from Callum Voisin. I mean, he is checking out right now, whilst his teammate Javier Segura is trying to find his way down the inside of Joel Granfors through the centre of shot there.
Yeah, making a great start. You can see the cars bouncing through the fog as the S's there. We saw Segura in that blue and yellow highlighted Carlin racing car going over the sausage curves, which are very, very bumpy in these single-seater cars, being only a few centimetres off the ground. Plenty of racing at the back.
Yeah, Tommy Smith trying to get around the outside of Alex Connor as we come to the hill. Bit of a lock up there from John Bennett. And look at this from Roberto Farrier, straight down the inside of Matthew Rees. Wow, he absolutely sent that one in down into Goddard's. Matthew Rees is going to get run out a little bit wide. Farrier is going to come through, and I think that might have been Zach Taylor as well coming through in all of that. I mean, that was a bold dive from Farrier. We've seen a few of those in his time. Very
robust move from Farrier, locking up again. You can see that the cars are pushing hard. Oh, there's contact between the 2 Arden VDR cars.
Yeah, that was yeah, of course. I mean, aggressive stuff again from the 2 of them. You don't want to hit your teammate, you don't want to take them out, but Alex Connor and David Morales coming very, very close. I mean, thankfully, all of the Arden cars, VRD cars, are all very different liveries, so we can pick them out at a heartbeat. But still, that one probably wouldn't have gone down too well in the team.
Yeah, hard racing throughout the field. We heard from Bryce Aaron before the race that everyone's out there for themselves. They're trying not to take their teammates out, but ultimately, if a move's on, they're going to take it regardless.
Yeah, this place, like I say, it's totally cutthroat within it. You know, the team orders, none of that in this. You just want to go out there, you want to get on the attack. Tom Leben's closing back in on Callum Voisin at the front of the field. Meanwhile, we do have this long train that goes back. It's Mackenzie Cresswell going on the defence. It's Nico Christodoulou that's trying to get to the outside as they come through the fog. Yes, I mean, that was a bold attempt from Christodoulou, and it might open him up for a potential move from Max Esterson, who's dropped back a couple of spots. Another lock up in the foreground. That might have been John Bennett once again. There's Esterson down the inside of Nico Christodoulou. Meanwhile, the Ardens behind are starting to switch positions. There was a bit of a move there between, I think, Tommy Smith and Nick Gilks, who got down the inside of Tommy Smith. He's actually dropped back about 3 or 4 positions over the run of this lap.
Tom Levin is definitely closing down on Callum Voisin for the lead of the race. It's now down to just about half a second. He was very close in that last sector of the lap. We can see Browning settling in now. He'll be pretty happy with that, gaining a couple of positions at the start, or 1 position at the start. Granfors also has actually gained a couple of positions. He's up from P8 to P6, so gap not too much between the 2. However, he'll be hoping to get past Bryce Aaron, although Bryce Aaron will be making it very, very difficult for Granfors, I am absolutely sure, for his own race and also for his teammate Luke Browning and championship leader.
Yeah, well, as they head up the hill once again, there is Joel Granfors, like you say, trying to get after the championship leader of Luke Browning. Is now a couple of positions ahead, but like you say, his teammate is between them. Bryce Aaron is there, who, I've got to say, Bryce Aaron, I mean, you had a little bit of a chat with him, of course, before the race. What a qualifying session to have done so well. We saw splashes of this back in Spa of how much he's moved forward. It is a very impressive run from the young man. Tom Leben set the fastest lap of the race, and he's setting faster sectors, Sector 1 and Sector 2 this lap. He is closing right in. It's 34 against 35. Callum Voisin holding on to the race lead, but Tom Leben's charging.
Tom Leben is absolutely charging, putting the pressure on. Although we've seen earlier on this year, Callum Voisin, we know, has the pace around here because he got 1 race win. He did also make that mistake in race 2 last time we were here under pressure, so he will have hoped to have learnt from that and keep Leben behind, because as much as Leben is faster at this stage of the race, I say that, Voisin's just set the fast lap of the race with an excellent final sector. 32.7 was almost half a second faster than Leben in the last sector.
I mean, he knows how to win around here, doesn't he? Does Callum Voisin? Yellow flag. That is Christodoulou, is it potentially? I don't actually want to jump into any conclusions. But that's a car pretty heavily into the barrier. Now that, I'm going to assume it's potentially assisted.
No, it looks like Morales.
Oh, yeah,
actually.
that would be
Morales
right.
is
Yeah,
going to come round. He's gone off at the exit of the Melbourne Loop. That's not normally a place you'll be on your own. So it looks like we've probably had some side-by-side racing through there, and someone's just not quite given the room on the exit. That's completely conjecture at this stage because we haven't seen anything, but that's the likely cause of that incident.
We do like to cause a little bit of drama, but hopefully, again, Morales is out, is going to be all right. He's had a couple of big shunts. The safety car, by the way, is out. So the safety car will be out on the circuit. I don't think that's a shock to anyone. Pretty significant barrier repair will have to happen there, obviously, once they've got the car out and made sure everything's okay. So as much as it's a 14-lap race at the top of your screen, we know what happens in this one. There is Ollie Dutton, of course, from Arden, Richard Dutton on the left, all discussing things within the team.
Luckily, Morales absolutely fine. A fairly low-speed incident on the exit of that hairpin, probably only doing 40 miles an hour or so. Replay coming up, I believe.
No, I did get told I said Arden. No, Arden. You're absolutely right. It's Fortec, not Arden. That's me in the bad books of the Duttons, but we'll talk about that another time. It's fine. They've got a lot of pressure on their shoulders because, of course, Fortec are dealing with 2 championships this weekend. They're dealing with GB3 here with the old Grand Fours, and they're dealing with Nick Taylor as well in GB4. A lot of pressure on their shoulders as a squad, and they've already had to deal with a little bit of an issue after qualifying, which we'll talk to. But like I said, thankfully, David Morales out of the car and seemingly fine. Just probably a little bit miffed.
Physically fine, mentally, I'm sure will not be enjoying things because you never want to end the race early, especially at the last round of the season. But good news is he's fine. The car will almost certainly be okay to be repaired and raced again tomorrow. Again, a very low speed incident there at the exit of the hairpin. It's, hopefully we've got replay, but maybe not because sometimes that part of the circuit can be quite hard to catch. But yeah, this should rebunch the field up, which I'm hoping will give us some opportunities for some more movements. Potentially Browning will go forward and try and attack Bennett for the podium position. Granfo's only 1 position behind his championship rival, with Bryce Aaron is the meat in the sandwich of the championship fight at the moment.
Yeah, and okay, I don't know. Did you ever have to deal with that when you were racing? Like, obviously, people around you fighting for a championship, you're just fighting for your own career. You're fighting for your own experience. How do you kind of deal with that? Do you think as a driver when you've got the championship battle around you? Do you treat it differently?
You probably best thing to do is not to treat it differently because ultimately, if you change how you act on circuit in a championship fight, that's also affecting the championship in a different way. So here's the replay from the start. Yeah, we can see a couple of poor starts. A great one from our championship leader of Yoel Granfors, who actually got to the outside. Watch him here, just the right-hand side. That's getting around Matthew Rees. Super start. Poor start from Matthew Rees, but he actually picked up Javier Segura as well on the race down towards turn 1. Callum Voisin with a great launch. Tom Leben fighting off his teammate of John Bennett, who again had a brilliant start up into 3rd position. I know he started in 4th, was only up 1, but still, 1 position makes all the difference. Yeah, 1 position can make all the difference, and the starts are so important in these single-seater races because once the race does get settled in, it is difficult to overtake. Let's see where we are with the safety car. Let's see if the lights are out or if this car's been recovered. Right, the car's being recovered as we speak, so we'll probably end up doing 1 more lap behind the safety car. You can see the drivers all weaving frantically. It seems like there's a bit of confusion going on at the last corner with the everyone backing up and going wide. It looks like we are green. We are going green. Yeah, that's a very early call, as there's still, I get it, they're recovering and all that, but either way, we are back racing again at Donington. There is a defensive move happening from John Bennett because Luke Browning's getting around the outside, and that number 5 high-tech machine, the silver car, straight around there. Almost contact between the two of them, but John Bennett just giving enough room. Luke Browning made that one stick. What a super effort. What a super effort. However, I did note that he did leave the circuit completely, all 4 wheels off, so it'll be interesting to see if the stewards have anything to do with that. But Bennett is back on the charge, trying to come back at Luke Browning, as you see Granfors going around the outside of Bryce Aaron. Yeah, this has got to be a big one for Granfors if he has any aspirations for the title. He needs to get on with it now, straight down the inside of Aaron as they head up through McLean's towards Coppice. Nearly a bit of a squeeze there from Aaron as well. Of course, Luke Browning's teammate Granfors does manage to make his way through, so he makes his way up into 5th position, moving it up inside the top 5. Meanwhile, there's a couple of 2 wide in the background. That's Chris Dulu going a little bit slow. You've got Mackenzie Cresswell and Zach Taylor as well trying to find their way past. Meanwhile, we look at Javier Segura in that yellow highlighted Carlin machine trying to find his way past Bryce Aaron. Yeah, it's Javier Segura is looking very racy. We know he's had great pace this weekend in practice and qualifying, although he's dropped back slightly through the through the Fogarty chicane, and that is allowing his teammate there's a contact front wing between teammates. So Farrier got in there very late, his front wing tagging the rear wheel of Javier Segura, which potentially, hopefully, has not damaged the rear tyre of Segura, because again, that would be another contact between the Carlin teammates, which we've seen a couple of times this year.
We have indeed. Trevor Carlin, I remember that very first race at GB3, and Trevor Carlin watching on from the pit wall, very unamused by his squad after that happened. Roberto Farrier, though, big lock-up as he looked straight down the inside into Redgate. That was a massive move to get down the inside of Matthew Rees, who had to literally jump out of the way, not only of himself, but also Mackenzie Cresswell as well. That was a very sketchy attempt as they head down towards the old hairpin. Roberto Farrier is trying something to try and get around the outside of the old hairpin, but doesn't do so on that occasion, but that was potentially a little bit over the line.
That's the second time this race that Roberto Farrier has thrown it up the inside of Matthew Rees and nearly taken him
contact,
out.
the front wing's gone on Cresswell.
More contact. Farrier is on an absolute mission this race to try and get past and touch every car around him by the looks of it. As he goes inside once again, whoa, this is going to go crazy. And Rees around the outside, what an opportunistic move. That's a great comeback on Farrier, who has already gotten twice this race from 2 speculative dive bombs.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any sort of damage on Farrier's car after all of that. That was a very late move on Zach Taylor as well. Another lock-up. Oh, there is certainly damage on that car. Farrier goes straight over. Yeah, he got a puncture on the rear right, which kind of makes sense as that's where he made contact with Mackenzie Cresswell. So further issues. It's caused a calamitous affair in this pack because Max Esserson straight down the inside. There's a bit of a lock-up as well from Roberto Farrier as they head down towards the Melbourne hairpin. So he's going to run a little bit wide before he comes back on. But Max Esserson trying to pick up a couple of positions and all of that, getting past Alex Connor. Meanwhile, behind that, Kian Shields and Nick Gilks go side by side. Gilks on the inside in that number 64 Hill Speed machine.
Crazy racing at the back of the field all the way through here. We've got Iwasaki as well, right in the mix in that high-tech car, no, the elite car, the newcomer for this race weekend. He's getting well in the mix in this race with Mikael Grundvig. Cars left, right and centre, all within just a few centimetres. It's great racing.
Yeah, what a super affair. There is Roberto Farrier into the pit lane to receive some sort of damage repair, get that rear tyre changed and get back out onto the circuit. But of course it does take out of his allotted tyre count for the weekend. They only get 8 tyres effectively over the weekend's running, and that's 1 down already. Nick Gilks defending at the moment, that 60 feet, that red and white machine trying to hang on from the silver of Kian Shields around the outside. Super move from Kian Shields, brilliant stuff, space and respect given. Lovely stuff, it takes 2 to tango, and that was a brilliant display.
That was a great move around the outside. Kian Shields keeping it completely on the limit on the outside. Again, another example of drive potentially leaving the circuit. Is that Matthew Rees?
Yes.
Matthew Rees has got damage on his front wing. I think that was from the contact with Roberto Farrier. That will definitely be affecting the amount of front grip that he has from that front wing from the downforce. It looks like he's defending from one of his teammates. We've currently lost the feed, so we'll get to you back in a moment.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, we got the. It was Chris Dittman Racing that was trying to find its way past there as well. A return to coverage. Zach Taylor trying to fend off. That's going to be affecting it quite a lot on speed. He's just not going to have the turn in that he would necessarily want with Matthew Rees. He's in 9th spot at the moment, still just trying to hang on in all of this. But it's a little dicey in all of that. Zach Taylor looking to the outside. I mean, Matthew Rees is a sitting duck right now.
He is. He's completely lost that front wing end plate now, which it should actually dump quite a lot of downforce off of the front of the car, and he will definitely be able to feel that. Oh, there's more front wing damage from Mackenzie Cresswell and rear wing damage.
Yeah.
So he's damaged both ends of his car, so he'll be struggling with downforce all over. Oh, Matthew Rees wide at the exit of the old hairpin with that front wing damage. I think he's dropped off. Mackenzie Cresswell's going to have to be careful.
That's a meatball flag if ever I've seen it. A meatball, of course, being...
Meatball is the flag which the stewards will show the drivers if there is anything safety-wise on the car that needs attention immediately. It's a black flag with an orange circle in it. Kind of looks like a meatball, hence
the term a meatball flag. Yeah, basically your car is unsafe for the racetrack, and I think there is no doubt in this camp. I mean, we can even hear it on the feed coming down into the fog. Yes, that there is something really not right with that car. It's just clearly relieves of. I don't know where it's let go like that. That's the important thing. I'm not sure where he's dropped it, where he would have lost the rear wing in such a way. But look at this, Kian Shields straight down the inside of Nick Gilks trying to find his way back through. Super stuff. We look back towards the race leader though. 6 minutes left in this race, so roughly the 5 laps that we're expected to get. Voisin holds on from Leben, from Browning, from Bennett, from Granfors, the top 5 at the moment. Looking back towards the fight that has Taylor ahead of Chris Dulu. That is the final spot inside the top 10. It actually becomes 9th because Mackenzie Cresswell's just come in.
Yes, Mackenzie Cresswell has pitted for all that damage, of course, front and rear wing damage. So unfortunately, that will be the end of his race.
And Reese is in, isn't he?
And Matthew Reese, of course, for his front wing damage, which had lent him to go off the exit of the old hairpin. It's a very fast corner. So yeah, look at the Chris Dittman racing team, seeing if they can do anything now. No, Mackenzie Cresswell is out of the car. DNF in this race, very unfortunate. I didn't see any contact at the rear of Mackenzie Cresswell's car.
It's an odd. Maybe like he'd got a bit of contact at some point, and then it's just eventually just let go. Of course, there is a lot of weight being pushed down. Obviously, as the air goes over, it's kind of like it's an amount of weight that people don't really realise how much the air is pushing down on it. Because we always kind of see it. You look at a front wing and you think, if I stand on that, it's going to break.
No.
And there's no way that front wing. Think of how much air pressure is going over the top of it and pushing it down to the ground. There's no way that you standing on it would break it. It's crazy.
It's made of carbon fibre. Both the rear wings and the front wings are made of carbon fibre, which we know is one of the strongest materials available. They produce a huge amount of downforce. Even in these GB3 spec cars, you're looking at probably, I couldn't say specifically, I haven't got any figures, but you're probably near on the weight of the car in downforce towards the end of a straight. So that's what allows these cars to go so fast around a circuit like this. We're actually faster than the the GT3 cars around here, which have 500-600 horsepower, and we're only at 230. But just the sheer amount of grip and the corner speed that you have means that you can do some really, really fast lap times, and what makes them so enjoyable to drive as well.
High Tech all watching on, clearly enjoying our feed and our commentary, right? Maybe it depends if we're saying anything nice about them on the day. Back to Fortec running the numbers as well, keeping their eye on what's happening with the old Graphers. I did actually chat with Ollie Dutton before the race, and he was saying that for this one, realistically, they were like, they've been so proud of what Yoel Granfors has done this season. A second place for a rookie, for someone who's so young with so much potential. To be fair, they were like, obviously we want to win the championship, we're here to win, but we're incredibly proud of what he's done. And they're almost like, this is like the pressure's off. They can't lose second position.
Guaranteed.
Exactly. So kind of like, yeah, great. You've done the hard work through the season. It's GB4 where they're feeling the pressure. And that's where almost I think they're focusing all of that sort of nervous energy. This is kind of a bit more calm.
Track limit warnings for car 6 and car 50. So that
50 is Granfors. 6 is Farrier, isn't it?
That's track limit warning, which means that if he drops a wheel on the exit of those corners, so the exit of turn 1, the exit of the old hairpin, McLean's, too many more times, he could be looking at a 5-second penalty, which would take him a long way down the field. So he'll have to be very, very careful of that, because that could be a huge dent in his championship aspirations.
Yeah, indeed. And like I say, when it comes to the championship fight, you've got to keep it going until Sunday afternoon, right? And if anyone remembers back to the third Donington race that we had here earlier on in the year, it was kind of somewhat calm, to be honest, with the exception of the first lap in the first race. It was almost kind of calm until that third race, and we were like, yeah, no one's really had any major damage, and then everyone started just blitzing front wings. I think we had like 6 front wing changes from about like 3 laps into that race. Absolute madness.
Granfors, while he would want to be up with Luke Browning in the situation he's in now, he's not going to catch Luke Browning in this race. He's going to have to take the points hit. So his best option now basically is to try and do whatever he can to take this championship to the final race of the season. And as long as he's mathematically in with a chance, then he's got a chance. He's unlikely at this stage, especially considering qualifying, he was slightly behind Browning. He's unlikely going to be able to pass Browning and get a big points differential. So again, you've mentioned that the team are very happy with the fact that he's solidified and guaranteed second place in the championship. Again, first season in GB3, which is a no mean feat, especially for a team Fortec who, over the past few seasons, potentially haven't had the fastest car, but he's shown this year that the Fortec team and himself work very well together, and they've put in a proper championship fight.
Yeah, indeed. And like I said, they've been very, very impressive. I've got to say, by the way, I feel really bad for John Bennett in all of this, because guess what? He's in 4th place. And he is one of only 3 drivers, if memory serves, he's only 3 drivers on the grid that has yet to get a podium in the championship. Himself, Alex Connor and Nico Christodoulou. And of course, the full-time runners in the season, Alex Connor and John Bennett, they're the ones that have done the full season. I mean, for him to have missed out, he was running in 3rd earlier on in this race. He's done such a good job through the championship of building, of learning and whatever, but maybe doesn't have that final little edge to hold on to the podium. I mean, to be fair, there was not much he could do about Browning in that scenario. He went all the way around the outside of Redgate.
I think John Bennett's actually had a very, very strong season, all things considered. He has that unfortunate statistic that you've just mentioned, being one of only 2 drivers not to have a podium. However, He is currently sitting 8th in the championship pretty comfortably. He's going to score more solid points. He's been in the top 5 many times. So,
many times.
And we've mentioned this season that the championship challenges of, for example, Granfers and Browning, they rely on consistency. And we now know that towards the end of this season, Bennett and that elite motorsport team have got some really good pace. Couple that next year, if he joins next year and follows on and does a second season, he could be definitely in with a shout of a championship challenge. If he can continue with the consistency and the speed that he's had the second half of the season, he'll be definitely one to watch.
Well, I think it was, Matthew Rees is coming out of pit lane, obviously being shown the blue flag to let him, make him aware that faster cars are coming, and he'll wait for Zach Taylor and that to come through. Zach Taylor, by the way, having a great drive up in 8th spot, and you can see how much of that pit lane that they use. We're on the final lap of this race, but yeah, like you say, consistency is king in a championship like this. I think John Bennett was actually running in 3rd in the championship after the first 3 races, so there is that. But Callum Voisin, focusing on the race at hand, Tom Leben's been close but hasn't been able to do anything.
No, he's got right close. They're on slightly different tyre strategies. Voisin, I believe, took 2 right-hand side new tyres, and Levin took 2 left-hand side new tyres. So Levin's not actually been able to use the extra left-hand side tyre grip to get past Voisin, so that bodes well for Voisin. He might still have some pretty good grip in race number 2 tomorrow if he can take 2 new tyres once again, and that'll mean that he can potentially, after a good start, have a double race win, which he'd love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here we go into the final couple of corners. There was a bit of a look there from Leben. Voisin hanging on to the race lead, but he's starting to feel the pressure right now. Just 1 corner left to go for Callum Voisin to take yet another victory in the GB3 Championship. He's starting to rack them up in that number 35. He had a bit of an issue back in Brands Hatch, but he's rectified that immediately here at Donington Park as Callum Voisin comes out of the final corner and takes victory in the first race of the final weekend. Tom Leben behind in second position, and Luke Browning with a very well-deserved 3rd place, pulling out even more points than his championship rival of Yoel Granfors, who ends up in 5th place. John Bennett in 4th. Gotta say, a lot of super drives in there, none more so than Callum Voisin. He dealt with the pressure beautifully.
Yeah, clinical drive in that race from Callum Voisin, start to finish, great start, got away, then soaked up the pressure. Only 1 challenge for the lead on the final lap into the Melbourne hairpin, but a great lap time as well. So a deserving victory. Tom Leben will be very happy with 2nd place. He's racking up those podiums more recently, isn't he? Tom Leben. He's almost like every single race is right there. John Bennett will be very happy, 4th place. Browning, of course, going from 5th to 3rd. He'll be pretty chuffed with that, extending the championship lead that he has. 5th place, Granfers. He'll be somewhat disappointed, but not too much so, I don't reckon. No, Granfers was 6th, wasn't he, actually?
5th.
5th. It was correct. Yes, it was correct first time round.
I will say, again, the strength of mentality from Yoel Granfors is actually extremely high. He took the fairly poor results from back in Brands Hatch really, really well. And I will say, when it comes to himself and Luke Browning in the championship, they seem to get along. I was seeing them out in the paddock earlier. Luke Browning had gone down to the Fortec tent. He gets along with Fortec quite well. They were getting along very well. There was plenty of banter between them. We are getting word in our ear that potentially Tom Leben has been moved down. We actually do see that he's gone down to 4th, which has actually given even more points to Browning, and has given a first podium to the man himself, John Bennett.
John Bennett with a podium. What a man. I imagine that's probably a track limits 5-second penalty for Leben, which will be disappointing because he was robbed of pole position at the final round, the previous round at Brands Hatch, due to an incident from Silverstone, which shows that, trying to keep your nose clean is very important as well.
Yeah, he did have the fastest lap of the race. We'll take a look at the results of the first race of the final weekend. Voisin taking the victory from Browning and from Bennett. So John Bennett does finally get himself a podium in the final weekend of the season. Leben drops from 2nd to 4th place, with Yoel Granfors in 5th. So even more points pulled out from our main man Browning at the top of the standings. Bryce Aaron behind that with Javier Segura, Taylor, Christodoulou, Connor. And then we get Esterson. He'll be very disappointed after how well he went before. Shields behind with Jilks, who had a great drive to come up the order. I think started from 19th spot up to 13th. Brilliant drive. Tommy Smith, Grundtvig. Iwasaki as well. Great debut in the championship. So a couple of really, really good stories in all of that. And you can see them into Parc Fermé climbing out of the cars. I don't think Tom Leben will know right now because you know, they don't have radios in the car. They're not going to get told in these scenarios. So, well, I guess we'll find out in a few moments' time, because John Jackson will grab an interview with the load of them. Did hear him asking about what the penalty was for. I can double check. I do believe it was for, yep, I can see it on my screen. It was a 5-second time penalty for track limits. That was the expectation. That will be coming through the likes of Goddard's, out of T1, potentially even on the run down into the old hairpin. So there's quite a few of them, and you can see Callum Voisin's been called over by the man himself, because John Jackson is standing by.
Yeah, well, an excellent drive there from pole position to the race win for Callum Voisin. Great also for the Carlin team, who are going for the team championship. And Callum's just behind me now, so I think I'll get a word with him in just a second. Something to tell you about the race there. Lewis will have mentioned it, but I'm not entirely sure that Luke Browning knows yet. Callum, congratulations. We spoke earlier on, and we were saying about how, you know, solid third position coming into this weekend, and also for the team it's important with the team championship. 2 pole positions and 1 race out of 2 straight away.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the perfect way to end a Saturday, that's for sure. Double pole, a race win under my belt, another one. So, yeah, no, couldn't be happier.
And I would imagine, having qualified on pole position for the first race tomorrow morning, that you're pretty confident that if you get a good start again, you can repeat exactly what we've just seen.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think the main thing is getting a good start, which I did this time, which was good. I mean, Tom behind me was extremely quick. It was very hard to keep him behind. I thought kind of midway through I had a nice kind of rhythm and a nice gap, but then the safety car came out, and then that kind of all undone everything I'd worked for. But anyway, yeah, really good race. It was just towards the end I made a little bit of a mistake, and the tyres started to drop off, which is why Tom got a little bit closer towards the end, but no, I managed to hold on.
It takes a lot of concentration, I imagine. Callum, congratulations for that race win. We'll let you go and celebrate with your team. We'll see you tomorrow morning from pole position. Maybe we'll repeat that feat again, okay?
Yeah, certainly hope so. Thank you.
Awesome stuff. We've got to move on very, very quickly. I'm going to need to grab Luke Browning, which is not going to happen right now, but John Bennett actually came third with Tom Leben moved down for that 5-second penalty. I imagine Luke probably knows by now that he's come second, but Piers actually come in. That's going to be huge for the championship, because obviously Yoel now has an extra person in between. He was in 5th, and now Luke's second, so Luke extends his lead.
Yeah, Luke extends his lead in the championship. We'll be very happy with that. We can hear him being interviewed in the background on the circuit commentary, so yeah, couldn't have expected anything better, I suppose.
Here he is.
Talk to us.
Luke, so I mean, you crossed the line third, but you're taking second place there with Tom Leben's penalty, so that puts even more space between you and Yoel after he finished 5th.
Yeah, happy to come away, B2. That's cool. Yeah, mega start. It was so close, and that going up to T1. I thought we were going to have a 3-car sort of collide at one point, so I backed out, and hence I didn't get the move. But yeah, I managed to grab John a little bit later on in the race. But yeah, it was a solid race, and obviously great racecraft from the guys not to have any clashes out there. So.
Yeah, Luke, I saw that at the start. You were really, really close with the guys coming side to side. Is it sort of weigh on your mind when you're going into fights like that your championship is, so close when the margins are that close?
You know what? We've had this conversation over and over back at High Tech, and if you try and be conservative, if you don't go for the move, if you don't drive natural, things will just go against you, and you'll cause more crashes. You do unpredictable things that other drivers wouldn't expect. So, the pep talk before going out was go out, send it, see where you end up.
And actually, Yoel made up 2 places off the line and had a great start. So you needed that start and to get round Bryce as well. I'm going to let you go and celebrate now, because we've got to move on with the podium. But you said to me earlier on that you were hoping to have won by lunchtime tomorrow after that first race. I think mathematically you can win the championship by then. Is it going to happen?
You never know if I have an amazing start, but you can't wish any misfortunes on anyone else. But I'll keep my head down. Hopefully, have another good start. And yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world if I follow Joel around tomorrow. But of course, I want to overtake him.
Of course you do. Very diplomatic answer, Luke. Go and celebrate. Luke Browning there, finishing third, but actually being bumped up to second there with Tom Leben's penalty. Now John Bennett, that means comes third. Now John Bennett won't be here because he will have taken his car to a different area. Obviously, just the top 3 drivers here in Parc Fermé. We'll try and catch up with him in just a bit. But for now, I think the podiums are about to take place, and Lewis McGlade will talk you through them.
Certainly will, and it's points time to discuss all of that in the championship. But a big win for Callum Voisin. We'll see Luke Browning come up onto second position and take down the entire podium with him. Good effort, good sir. Might well be the championship leader, but he's not very good at walking onto a podium. I don't really know where I was going with that. Either way, he's had, oh, it was the wind. It was the wind. I mean, yeah, that's, I don't believe in any of that. He's got 5 wins though this season, and now adding to his tally of podiums, yet another second place. It's his 6th second place finish. There's John Bennett into his first podium, and Callum Voisin onto the podium for his 3rd victory in the GB3 Championship. Of course, he had one taken back when he did the Spa round, but he's grabbing them left, right and centre. And after like I said, a poor round at Brands after issues in qualifying, he's done a super job to have rectified that, to have come back with a double pole position here. It'll be starting from first again tomorrow. To update you on the points, Luke Browning, 459 points, plays Yoel Gramforce's 433.5, which means it'll be a quick math again, a 25.5 point lead. Now it's 35 points for a race victory, so certainly is still plenty open, but as we've had such a great race, I think it's best that we take another look. A great start it was from Yoel Gramforce to get around the outside of Matthew Rees on the race start. Rees coming over to defend, but Yoel Gramforce, he wasn't having any of it, sent straight around the outside. Meanwhile, Callum Voisin was taking a very strong race lead into the first corner. Leben behind in second position, John Bennett up into 3rd spot, and then it was Luke Browning that was charging behind as well, trying to find his way back onto the podium. Leben defending from his teammate as they would head down the Craner curves. Roberto Farah defending aggressively from Matthew Rees, who'd be on the up and under on the exit of the old hairpin to get to the outside. A safety car had come out after issues for David Morales and a barrier repair, but once we got back going again, it was handed back over into the control of Callum Voisin. Roberto Farah though was on the charge. He wasn't happy with Matthew Rees being ahead of him. He'd send it down the inside very aggressively. Mackenzie Cresswell will come through. A little bit of contact between the two of them would give damage to the front wing end plate of Mackenzie Cresswell, and would give Roberto Farah a puncture, which took a little while to come into effect. It was certainly a slow puncture, but once he'd gone straight over Goddard, he knew exactly what was going on. Meanwhile, Callum Voisin holding on to the race lead. Luke Browning, who'd gone straight up into 3rd spot, and between them was Tom Leben. A super drive from Callum Voisin and a well-deserved 3rd victory in the GB3 Championship. Now, after that, we'll head down to John again.
Well, I told you we'd find him, and we have very, very quickly. John Bennett, your first podium. Piers and Lewis were talking about how you're one of the very few drivers that have not had a podium so far this year, and you went and did it straight away. How do you feel?
Yeah, we finally got it. Starting 3rd again tomorrow, so hopefully another chance. But yeah, good race. Off to 3rd up the race start, but then yeah, lost it off the safety car restart, just like in the wrong gear, just bogged in 2nd. But fair play to Luke, it was a good move. But yeah, pace was strong throughout the race, and yeah, not the best way to get it from my teammate getting a penalty, but yeah, we'll take it. So.
And I saw that, of course, just got overtaken by Luke Browning there on the outside of turn 1, an excellent move, but I thought that he ran off the circuit. What's your opinions on that move?
Well, yeah, he was off track, but I'm not sure. Just have to see what the stewards say. But I think it was a good move. I gave him space, and he gave me space. So, yeah.
Great, excellent. Well done on your podium.
Cheers.
I was going to say, you say it was great there for you and Tom, unfortunate to get bumped back a bit, but Elite looking very strong, and we know that in the testing you were both very, very strong. So, you know, you mentioned, 3rd tomorrow. Do you think you can go one better tomorrow?
Yeah, well, hopefully. Race starts have been good the past couple of rounds, and today, again, gaining 1 off the start. So yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow, but yeah, really good result from the team. We've been really strong this week. 2nd and 4th in quali, and in testing I was 1st on Thursday, Tom was 1st overall on Friday. So yeah, really happy, and just thanks to the team for such a good car. So.
Excellent stuff. We'll let you go and celebrate. I know your family are just behind us taking a million photos. John Bennett, who's finished 3rd in this race, the first race of the weekend at Donington, and Tom Leben was around.
He is there.
Tom Leben got moved down. Oh, here we go. Piers is going on a little fact-finding mission, as we like to have. Oh, here we go. Hey Tom, so yeah, just disappointing to have lost that 3rd place, but you know, still some great pace there.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world with the track limits. The pace is definitely there. With P2 on the road, P4 after the penalty, but still happy with the result regardless, really.
You must be pleased for John as well, one of only I think 3 drivers who've done the full season not to have had a podium so far until today.
Yeah, he was definitely looking for a podium this weekend at the end of the season. I said well done to him. A good result in the end for both me and him in the race, yeah.
And we've got 2 more races this weekend and in the championship, so what are you hoping for in that second race tomorrow?
I'm hoping to get a podium and get a podium. But regardless, really, I'm happy with the weekend so far, and then looking to move forward in a reverse grid race tomorrow.
Okay, Tom, we'll let you go and debrief with your team. Tom Leben there with Elite Motorsports, and you know, we mentioned there that they've shown great pace. I mean, Callum Voice in there, he looked good in qualifying. Once he got that first hot lap, he improved his time a couple of times, I think. And I think we sort of said, if he can get a good start, that's it, he's gone, unless he makes a mistake.
He's been probably, of the second half of the season, one of the fastest, if not the fastest driver. He should have been on pole, potentially, at Brands Hatch last round. He was on, I think he was on a green and a purple sector, and then unfortunately had the incident in his qualifying, which then wrecked the rest of his weekend. He was fastest in qualifying today. He's been pretty much up there in every practice session so far, and then showed in the race he's still got that pace as well. Great start, pulled away, soaked up the pressure from Tom, and Tom pushed just a bit too hard, which meant that he got the 5-second penalty, demoting him off the podium. But again, Tom Leben, we've seen that another podium again on the road, but he seems like he's got podiums for fun at the moment. Again, another driver that's really coming on strong towards the end of the year, especially with that Elites team as well. They're really coming on as a team together.
They really are. We've talked a lot about the guys at the front and the teams at the front. I saw some exceptional racing there from Kean Shields and Nick Gilks having a proper battle. And I know when you're battling for what, 14th and 15th, I think it was, you know, it's not the action at the front, but we saw a lot of it on our coverage there, and it's good to see that they're probably fighting right until the end of this championship.
Yeah, right to the end. All the drivers are in it. They're getting as much experience as possible. They're pushing themselves as much as they can, because a lot of the drivers, especially towards the back of the field, are the more inexperienced drivers who haven't got the years under their belt. So they're trying to gain that experience, they're learning, and they will be using the experiences towards the end of this year to fuel them and fuel their confidence for next year, so that they can hit the ground running and hopefully have an even better year next year, potentially challenging for championships. You look at the drivers at the front of this series at the moment. Granvus, yes, he's a rookie this season, but he's probably one of the outliers. Browning, not racing this series, but done a lot of other single-seater championships. You've also got second-year, third-year drivers like Farrier and Leben as well. So those drivers, it shows how much difference the experience really makes.
Now, we're going to walk and talk back to the garages. Now, we don't have to walk far. I'm going to get away of this car, and well, we've actually, I thought we'd beached the cameraman there, the wrong side of a car. Let's walk and talk back to the garages, Piers. But I just want to talk to you. We haven't mentioned this yet, but the 2023 calendar was released earlier on, and there's actually 2 international races next year, which is going to be really exciting. We've got Spa. We saw the cars go around Spa earlier this year. But we've also got Zandvoort as well. I mean, is that a track you've driven as a driver?
I haven't. I've driven it on the sim many times. Of course, it's been reprofiled and then put into the Formula 1 calendar, which is amazing that in the GB3 Championship next year we'll have 3 tracks which race in Formula 1. So these drivers are getting some really good experience of potentially tracks that they were using in the years to come.
Right, we've got Nico Christodoulou and Alex Connor. Let's have a quick chat with you guys here. And I mean, talk me through your race first of all, Alex.
It was very interesting, put it that way. A lot of action, especially on the first 2 laps, and the safety car came out, and then the 2 laps after that. But yeah, no, it was proper fun. It was.
Okay, good. And Nico, I mean, we saw there was a couple of moments I think we saw on the coverage. I mean, how would you sum up your race?
I mean, it was pretty good from the start. Made up a couple positions, and then after the safety car, it was absolute carnage with the I think it was like a 5-way battle for 1 position, and yeah, a couple cars ended up going off and not finishing, but yeah, it was a good race. Good points from 13th to 9th, and especially on a track where it's hard to pass, so it's all right.
And we saw David had a little bit of an incident there. We can see there they're fixing David Morales' car behind. He's all good? Everything's fine with him?
Yeah, he's all right. I think he's just inside. Not quite sure what happened, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
We'll fix the car and go again. Guys, we've got to move on, but thank you very much. Nico Christodoulou there and Alex Connor from Arden. Is it VRD?
Yes, VRD,
not
which is
VDR,
Velocity Racing Department.
There you go.
Interesting to see that Arden have actually had a bit of a tie-up with an American racing team. So we've seen that Nico Christodoulou's come over for America. I think he raced for the VRD back in a different series, and they've got a nice tie-up there. So drivers from the States can come over here, just like Nico, and experience this wonderful championship. Potentially also drivers can go the other way. So maybe drivers like Alex, if they can't find any any seats or steps forward in their career, maybe after this year they might think about going to Indy Lights or Indy Pro or anything like that towards sort of an IndyCar career, because that's something that they can definitely do.
Yeah, sounds like a nice little tie-up there. We're going to see if Joel will speak to us. P5, Joel, not maybe what you were hoping for, especially with Luke getting an extra place after the end of that race with Tom Leben being moved down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like a tense between me and Leben after his penalty, and you know, I didn't know that he had any track limits warning, so I was saying it a bit easier because I knew I had 2 track limits warnings, so I didn't want to risk another one. But yeah, still I think I made up 3 places, same as Luke. But looking forward to tomorrow, starting both races ahead of him, so hopefully can make some good points there.
Well, we said this in the film we're going to watch tomorrow, that you're the hunter and Luke is the prey, and it really will be that way around. And I know, Piers, you were a big fan of Joel's start earlier on.
Yeah, you had a great start. Talk us through what happened on the first couple of laps.
Yeah, I think the start was one of the best I've done actually, and I know Reese just had a horrible start. I think I almost stalled it, so it was really close. And just had to avoid him and did a Segura on the outside of turn 1. And then in the restart, I was in the wrong gear apparently because it was going so slow out of the last corner. So all the other guys were in first, and I was in second gear. So just had you know, no engine power out of the corner, but still managed to take Aaron on that lap. So.
We heard actually John Bennett said exactly the same thing at the restart. It was so slow that he was in second gear and bogged down. There's a lot to the restarts, isn't there? Are you learning as you're going in this sort of thing? Talk to us about the different things you have to think about with like a safety car restart.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I wasn't expecting the safety car to come in because the truck was still on track towing the car. So, but I couldn't see the lights on the safety car either. So I was unsure if the lights were out or if it's just the sun reflecting, just making me not able to see them. But then, yeah, so the massive checkup into the last corner, which almost ran straight into the back of Aaron. Then so Segura came on my left side and overtook me because he wasn't ready for that either. So. But it's a lot to think about, especially with safety car restarts and stuff. Which gear and all that. So.
Yeah, with Luke extending his lead, then tomorrow it's just everything to play for, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I came into this weekend with nothing to lose really. P2 at worst case scenario, so just going to do full send tomorrow then.
Excellent. We look forward to that. Commiserations on coming 5th. I mean, I know it sounds weird to say because it's a good result, but you know what I'm saying. Joel Granfos in the Fortec garage here. And Piers, as we wrap up this first race in the GB3 Championship, I mean, he's really got it all to do, hasn't he, Joel? Because Luke's just extended that lead, and I mean, Luke's struggled for a bit of pace, much as Joel has, and certainly getting around Bryce Aaron so early on for Luke. That really set him up to put that gap between him and the Swedish driver.
I'd say that's definitely a race that went slightly in Luke's favour. Joel didn't do a bad race at all, going from P8 to P5, gaining 3 positions, a nice solid race, good start, some good manoeuvres, pace was there. Just pushing potentially a little hard, which meant that he had those track limit warnings, so he couldn't quite push on right to the end because he didn't want to get a penalty himself, because that would have put him down quite a long way. But he'll be thinking, right, as long as I can get to that final race of the season, the reverse grid race where he starts ahead of Luke Browning, he'll be like, as long as I can get the points so that I'm still in it at that point, then anything can happen. He's done an amazing job this year, a rookie in the championship with a team that hasn't been, right in the championship fight for a couple of years now, and he's really shown that the Fortec team and himself have got some real talent and some real ability, and he's really put himself on the map, and he's going to be proud of himself and the team no matter what happens this weekend, because he's going to be guaranteed second place, but he would be doing everything he can to allow himself the best chance at a win.
He will indeed, and it could be the next race that Luke Browning wins the championship. You'll have to tune in and find out at 9:30 in the morning, there or thereabouts. Our coverage will start. Make sure you're maybe watching a little bit earlier. Sometimes things at racetracks can change. We can go earlier, we can go later. Make sure you're following the GB3 Championship on all of the social pages. You'll get extra content from some of the drivers and photos from around the track here. And don't forget, coming up in the next hour, the first race of the weekend in the GB4 Championship, where Nicholas Taylor will be looking to make up for an earlier accident that ended qualification, put him down to P3, but I still think he's got a good chance of wrapping up the title in the next race or two.